the numbers are staggering. And for autism, most particularly, these things did not exist back then. It's not just that we have identified it and have better diagnosis skills. It's not that they've just broadened the scope of this. It's that this literally didn't exist.
Most of the time aren't the healthiest ones. Let's look at, Oprah Winfrey, one of the richest women in the world. Can she buy the best doctors, drugs, and hospitals in the world?
Yes.
Does she have the best insurance, but does she have her health? And she's been very public about all her health issues. The people in Congress, the wealthiest people, many times they're more sick because of excess living. So health comes from within. You have to make proper choices. We're also looking at the government, the regulatory agencies, the media is the one that is propagating this. We have big agriculture as well that is destroying our soil and our food supply.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for joining us today, and welcome to Astronaut Media. Today, my guests, two doctors. It's a couple, Teresa and Stuart Warner. They've been at the forefront on family wellness and also pediatric chiropractic care for over 30 years, dedicating their careers to transforming healthcare for children. And they're also internationally recognized for their efforts to combat the alarming rise in childhood illnesses, advocating the holistic, drug-free approach, and they're joining us from the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us. We're thrilled to be able to speak to everyone about such an important topic.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you so much. Joanna's a good friend of mine, and so she and I have been collaborating for many, many, many years. And then when she said to me, hey, would you be interested in having Teresa and Stu? I said, absolutely, especially after I saw your resume and the things that you guys have done. So let's get right into this. What is it that the mainstream media and Big Pharma hate so much about the two of you?
Where to begin?
Yes. Well, they see every child as dollar signs, and healthy children don't need to take drugs or have organs removed from their bodies. So we've been speaking the truth for 30 years now about how to create a healthy child and how God created our children to be healthy, and how to maximize brain function, immune system function, healing leaky gut, how to be able to experience life at the fullest. So that's been our mission for all these years.
I think it's safe to say that we are witnessing the sickest generation of kids ever. I have three. Two of them are twins. They're 16 years old. They're wonderfully healthy. Needless to say, they have not been vaccinated. Okay, but you look around. We live in Mexico, and you look around you, and you see that it's amazing. I mean, I come from the Soviet Union, and back in the days, in the 1960s, early 1970s, I mean, we'd go out and play all day long. Would fall and would pick ourselves up, and do all kinds of stuff. But we're never sick. Yes, you'd catch something once in a while, but it's nothing like what we're seeing right now. The sickest generation of kids. So what are the main causes of this?
Yeah, we are certainly seeing the sickest generation in history. And if you jump back in time that little bit, a generation or two, and start in the 1950s, 5 to 6% of kids had a chronic illness. By the 80s, we had 10 to 12%. And now fast forward to today, and we have nearly 60% or more of children have a chronic lifetime illness that they're living with. And that's just not sustainable. Those numbers keep increasing. And there really are a multitude of reasons. I mean, certainly that's fantastic about your kids. You named one, which is directly injecting I was going to say carcinogens, poison into their bodies.
Well, that's what it is. Let's call things by the name.
Putting this into us directly. Right. There's so much womb to tomb. We're getting medication put into our children for every cold, sniffle, cough that they have. They're giving us something from Big Pharma to treat that instead of relying on what God put inside of each one of us. And then, of course, there are the multitude of looking at things like our food sources and the depletion in that, the obesity levels, the EMFs and 5G and chemtrails. Like, you can go on and on about what's happening culturally to our world, but it's just generally becoming more and more toxic. And there's only so much of that the body can take before it produces a generation of sick kids.
Daniel, this is shocking that this will be the first generation of kids that will not outlive their parents. Just about every childhood illness, without exception, has skyrocketed. Asthma has doubled in the last 10 to 20 years. 11% of kids are diagnosed with ADHD. 1 in 5 children are learning delayed or learning disabled. There are 16 million visits made to doctors for ear infections every year. Depending on which statistics you look at, 1 in 35 children today are diagnosed with autism. Where we live in New Jersey in the United States, according to the CDC and Rutgers University in the last couple of years, 1 in 20 boys will be diagnosed with autism, allergies, colic, reflux, diabetes. Why are our kids getting sicker and sicker as every year goes by? And parents are desperately looking for better approaches and solutions for their children. Children were born to be healthy. That's the normal state. And now we have a whole generation of chronically ill children, and we need to have a new revolution in thinking. We need to take different action steps to create the healthy generation that we've been working for.
Let me ask you something else. You mentioned that the sickest generation. Now, is this in the United States, in the capitalist world? What are the statistics globally? If you compare, sick kids in Canada and the United States, that'll be, a fairly similar market. How would that compare to the, children in China, or children in the Middle East, or children in Southeast Asia, or in Latin America? Do we have these numbers at all?
The numbers around the world have been rising as well, but the United States has the sickest kids. We're on the low end of the scale in infant mortality. We're on the low end of the scale in pregnant women health. So, it has to do with the food supply, the approach that is taken in our country is predominantly masking symptoms and covering up symptoms instead of correcting the root cause, which is the important way to look at it.
You're talking about the root cause. How is it possible that the United States of America, the wealthiest by far, the wealthiest country on the face of the earth, how is it possible that so many kids are so sick? Shouldn't it be the other way around?
100% it should be the other way around. And it doesn't have to be this way. And that's why, we really want to get out and say, if we're going to change this and change this, these statistics that are happening globally, not just in our country, but, all you have to do is turn on the television and you can see what's happening worldwide. But we need to take a different approach. And, for most of us, and certainly here in the US, we have to start with who's the gatekeeper traditionally for children's health. And that starts with the pediatrician. And our pediatricians are subsidized through Big Pharma. They really control our medical schools now, the education system, and the indoctrination of so many people on such a mass scale, from every other commercial on television being a drug commercial, to our doctors and what they're learning, and not being able to, people feeling like they can't rely on what's God-given inside of each one of us to help produce health. So they're always looking for that outside-in treatment instead of what is within. And if we can empower that, and we have the strategies and the tools that are free to everyone to make that happen, then we can start to culturally shift things, as well as getting away from some of the things people look at as the first thing they have to do, visit to the pediatrician every year before school, before you leave the hospital if you had a hospital birth, and so on, because with each one of those carries more and more opportunities to have injections, things put into our child, to have less reliance on the body's own ability to heal and more on big pharma and big government.
The US is also one of 2 countries worldwide that allows drug companies the ability to advertise directly to the consumer on TV. It's only the US and New Zealand that allow that. So, 75% of the advertising dollars going into the news shows on our networks are funded by the pharmaceutical company. The regulatory agencies that are supposed to protect the consumer, like the from the ones that are under the Health and Human Services and the FDA, they're being funded by big pharma. And then we have the pediatricians that are saying your children's body can't heal itself. You need to take drugs. And we empower the parents to make better decisions so that they can create healthy children.
In math, when you add 2 plus 2, you usually get 4. I know that a lot of times the mainstream media tries to tell you it's not 4, it's 16, but it's 4. Okay, 2 fingers and 2 fingers, I have 4 fingers. What am I trying to say? So, for example, the United States government spends literally billions of dollars in education. Billions of dollars. And when you have 50% of the country, speaking of kids, when you ask them questions, so what's the capital of the United States? They have no idea. Or what state do you live in? I don't know. But they certainly know everything you need to know about Kim Kardashian, about all the other celebrities. And so billions of dollars are being spent on this horrible, absolutely abject education. Now, again, following the logic of 2 plus 2 is 4, if the United States government, after spending billions of dollars on education, wanted good education, they would certainly make, responsible the people who are not doing what needs to be done. So in this particular case, they're actually spending billions of dollars and they're getting exactly what they wanted to get. So my question to you, speaking of health, the United States government being the wealthiest country in the world, if they're getting what they're getting, in other words, they're getting so many sick kids, more than ever in the history of the United States, well, that's obviously their objective, isn't it?
It must be, because in the US, we're spending 15 to 20% of our entire economy on doctors, drugs, and hospitals. Now, one might argue if you're going to spend that enormous amount of money and have a healthy society, that could be money well spent. But to spend that amount of money and to have 60% of our children chronically ill, this is shocking.
Well, this is exactly what they pay for. You get what you pay for. And what they're getting is exactly what they wanted in the first place, a cradle-to-grave mentality. So my question to you is, if you were to put a face and a name, like who is doing this from behind the scenes? We could talk about the US government, but again, it goes much higher than that. So who is really responsible for having this absolutely horrible, horrific system where so many of our children, which is our future in the end, if you want to talk about immortality, that's immortality. So who is doing this?